Yeah, Dad, Mr. Khattar, do you want to start with a welcome note, and then meanwhile, Jasmine, you give a final push nudge to all the other people who like enroll for the event. Just a reminder, if possible, on the sideline.
Okay.
Yeah, Dad, are you able to speak?
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you speak on behalf of me? Just introduce the.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So I thought you will give a welcome note. Okay. Okay. So Dad, my seems is not in a place we could speak. Okay, fine. So I welcome everyone on behalf of Wish Health, and many thanks to all the esteemed doctors and being as our panelists. And though we tried a lot, I think Jasmine and our she's our business development and client engagement manager, and Kulwant, our graphic designer and digital marketing expert. So they tried a lot to means market as much as possible. We reached out to our reach was around to 10,000 people over Facebook and other social media, and around 50 plus guests accepted. But I can't see so many attendees now. But like this, whatever the event is, they're going to telecast it on YouTube and promote it at various other forums. And so it's not just the event what audience we have, but it will go to a lot of audience which Wish Health has got and other allied our allies have got. So welcome everyone once again. So just to give a quick overview, I think we all know what is Wish Health. So Wish Health is a platform where we try to bridge the gap between doctors and patients. We try to so basically for doctors it's a one-stop shop where they can manage their clinic through Wish Health through by getting the patients, then booking their appointments, managing the prescriptions and all the stuff. And so for patient, like they can search the doctors even on Google, and then they will see us, and then they can see the reviews of doctor and book the appointment or call them online through our IVR system. And that calls will be the records of all the calls, and also they will be able to access their prescriptions online. So Kulant, can you go to previous slide? Yeah. So as of now, we have made a lot of outreach over Facebook. So as of now, 500,000 people have viewed our website and our videos and our promotions. So it means that much of population knows about us, and we have got a lot of videos. So around 50,000 plus people have viewed our videos. So we hope to promote this one also very heavily. Once we are done with this, we are recording this and then we'll put it on YouTube. And then around 10,000 patients have utilized our services till date. And we luckily have got 1,500 plus doctors. Yeah, Kulwant, can you go to the next one? So for this event, we can go to the next one. We just want to arrange this event so that people like whoever knows us, or we get a lot of calls that they are seeking help for COVID related calls, that they are having some distress issues, or they are a bit keen to know what's going to happen in third, how they're going to cope up in third wave, or they are having difficulties in cope up. So that's why we thought of arranging this one and take it from there. So I won't take more time. It's already 5 minutes. I would go to our first panelist, Dr. Mrs. Sumedha Banerjee, who is a counselor with Fortis, to give a brief intro, and we will run our slide and she can tell us about this. Yeah, Mrs. Sumedha. Kulwant, do you want to bring a slide up?
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thank you so much, Gagan. I would like to first and foremost basically congratulate Wish Health for trying to do this endeavor of bringing all of us together and discuss about the certain things about the COVID-19 related things that which might be required or which we might not be aware of so much. So thank you so much for this endeavor. If you can you just, will I be able to start my video if it's okay?
Yeah, you can. If you want.
The host has disabled it, something like that. Can you just enable it if you don't mind?
One second. I don't know. One second. Put on hold. I don't know. I'm not able to start the video. Jason, can you try? I can make you co-host, but put on hold, remove. Are you not able to start the video?
I'm not able to start the video on my own.
Second, that's very strange. So what I will do is I will try to not waste the time while I will check on the offline.
Sure. I'll start with.
Okay,
sorry.
I got the option. So allow attendee view. One thing, ask to unmute. You can only see the option of attendees. Okay, I will make you the co-host and no, I got it. So now you should be able to allow panelists to start a video. Yeah.
Yes, I think I should be online.
Yeah, I can see you now.
I can't see myself, but it's all right.
Yeah, that's a scale. I was also not able to see myself. Yeah.
Anyway, so like I said that thank you so much for this opportunity and all, but we will come straight to the discussion because our thing has been mainly to do with the repercussions of COVID-19, and we know that COVID-19 had a lot of repercussions, whether it's on the physical health, whether it's on the financial health, but it has been a silent killer in the area of mental health, which we have not been noticing a lot. So basically we wanted, or my talk had basically tried to focus on this thing, and more specifically on children, because they are very, very vulnerable, and on parents. So we know that, with the starting of the COVID and the lockdown that the different governments had imposed in all the countries and all, the children, especially the school going or the children, what happened that their classes started all online. And though, initially, it's all like, oh, I'm not going to school and it's fun and everything like that. But we all know that for a long time when they're doing online classes and all, it also started having its repercussions, and staying at home, maintaining social distancing. So one of the major things that started happening was that that adjusting to this online scheduling and all. So it's a different thing. It's a different thing when you're going to school, you're sitting down, you're meeting students, other students, your classmates, you're meeting your teacher, you're understanding things. But online classing is a different thing. Some people can adjust to it very well. Some people may not be able to adjust to it. So it can start basically hampering their interest, their understanding of the subject, and therefore their academic performance. But again, we cannot do a lot about that thing because unfortunately, because of this pandemic and social distancing, online classes have become a resort that we will have to take up on. Then, there has been difficulties in studies because a lot of, let's put it like this, staying at home and doing classes at home, it has also hampered a lot of our routine, our schedules and everything like that. Like I said in the beginning that, maybe if I want to understand something, a lot of people might not be very inclined to talk about it in online classes. They might not be very technical savvy that, they can raise the hand or say something. So difficulties in studies, academic performances, that can be seen. And okay, whatever we say or do, the more we are staying online, the more we are getting any kind of electronic gadgets, to utilize ours, for our academics or anything like that. It is increasing our screen time. And we behavioral scientists would always say that increasing screen time is not very good for our mental health, because what happens that it starts affecting our attention. So the more time you start spending on screen and all, your attentiveness starts getting down. That is number one. Number two is that increased screen time doesn't mean that I'm always spending it on studies or anything like that. I can be also spending on other things, right? Social medias and everything like that. Video games, computer games, things like that. So again, that can also cause a lot more inattention. Of course, I'm staying at home. I'm not able to always meet my friends and everything like that. It can cause social isolation. And after a point of time, for people, especially the children who had been appearing for boards. And actually, I feel personally very bad for them that, you know, they could not give their exams, and the entire turmoil that they had to go through regarding the fear or the uncertainty about their future, that, okay, how will I go to the, you know, next level, the college or the 11, 12, how will I get there? All these kind of things creates a lot of anxiety regarding the future prospects. So now the thing comes that what can we do about it? Because again, as I said, that, you know, children are very, very important. They're very precious and all. One of the major things that we have to ensure is that the role that the primary caregivers or the parents are, you know, doing. And a major thing that parents might have to, you know, take upon is that they have to realize that they have to create that sense of secure family environment. Because children's emotions can be topsy-turvy at any point of time. And if we do not understand their emotions, if we do not give them that sense of security, we might not be able to handle that instability that their mood might develop. That is number one. Number two is that the reason for secure environment is also that if there's any kind of family problems, any disturbances in the family dynamic, parents are fighting or they're not able to give time or any other things, it can also affect the children. Because again, if I'm maximum number of time I'm spending in an environment where there can be certain issues, then the environment will start affecting me. And children are more prone to getting affected by their environment rather than anything else. So that's where down the line, the secure environment becomes very, very important. At the same time, what also becomes important that when we are dealing with them and all, we understand that if they are behaving in the way they always behave, or there has been some atypicalities or any kind of differences in their behavior. Like, for example, we tell the, you know, parents that, you know, look out for anything like, for example, maybe the child's sleep or appetite has got disturbed, or and it is not just disturbed for 1 or 2 days, it is disturbed for a longer duration. Let's just say that the person is getting more fearful, more withdrawn, more aggressive. And that's why we are using the word atypical. Like, these were the things which were not present earlier, and we can see that, you know, they are different, they are something else. The child is showing some other kind of behavior which was not present earlier, and they're not just showing for 1 day or 2 days or something, but it is a gradual kind of a manifestation of all these things. Similarly, let's just say other somatic complaints like headaches, stomach aches, but there's no reasons. You cannot find any physical reasons for them, but these kind of things are happening. They might be getting too clingy, or they might be getting too impulsive. So again, atypical behaviors, once you start seeing, you have to understand that, okay, there might be some kind of a problem and all. Another thing is that first and foremost, a lot of times we might think that, you know, children's emotions and all, we might not always be very savvy with understanding that. But again, the very important thing is that we need to at least start asking them how they are feeling. So what, as parents, that we can try and do is that ask them how you're doing and everything like that, so that that channel of communication opens up. The more we ask them what is happening in their life, and even if they're staying with us or spend some time just talking randomly, and if we see any, you know, differences in their behavior, rather than always scolding them about it, we can just ask them that, hey, you know, I've been seeing that, you know, your behavior has changed slightly and all. Do you think something is wrong? Do you think that, you know, we can do something about it? So the thing is that when I am not talking about the behavioral changes or the emotional changes in a critical way, I'm more talking in a friendly way where I want to discuss, hey, what's wrong? Then perhaps the person might be more comfortable to talk. Because let's be very honest, children are not looking at parents as friends. They're looking at their friends as friends, not looking at parents as friends. But friends may not always be able to understand, and because of this social distancing and all, friends might not be able to see them or talk to them that often to be realizing all these things, or they might not have this kind of emotional maturity to understand what is wrong with their other friend. So somewhere down the line, as parents, we might need to take up that responsibility. Second is that when I am making them feel comfortable, I can reassure them about the fact that it's okay if they are feeling like that, rather than making them feel that, oh, it's a very bad thing if something wrong is happening to them. And the more we give them that, again, that more we give them that reassurance, we are basically trying to clear that communication challenge. We are making them comfortable and all, and making them feel that, oh no, you can talk to me and all. And of course, as people would say that if you feel that what the problems the person is sharing, if you think that it requires some kind of a professional help, do go for that. But if you don't think that, hey, it does not require the professional help, there is other things rather, apart from talking and communicating, that you can do, like small things, spending more quality time together, indulging in creative pursuits. If you see the person is spending more time on screen rather than, and being, withdrawn from the rest of the family and being at their room and everything like that. So you can basically try and take them, and as a parent also, because as a parent, we need to be also a role model to the children. So we might also tell them that, hey, it's a gadget-free time for all of us in the family. So let's spend some time doing something without all the gadgets. So we might also have to do the same thing, what we are asking them to do. Number two is that. Number three is that, whatever we say or do, we need to ensure that there's some kind of a structure, some kind of a, it can be flexible, not a problem at all, but there's some kind of a structure in the child's life, so that some kind of an lethargy, some kind of an indiscipline does not set in. At the same time, it can so also happen that, my sleep cycle is getting disturbed because I'm spending a lot of time at night on screen. So obviously it's going to disturb my biological cycle. So when the next morning I will have some classes, I will not be able to attend them, and it will hamper, or I will be there, but my video will be off and I might be sleeping and or not be able to listen to that. So as parents, we also need to ensure that that kind of a routine, or that kind of a structure is being taken care of. Overall, again, the thing is that, we can talk about a lot of things. We can, lecture a lot. But the main thing is that somewhere we need to give children a sense of what we would like to, call up as agency, that they can be the agents of change also. So that's where down the line we can also give them that sense that, hey, if there's some kind of a problem, can you tell me what we can do about it? Can you give me your idea what you can do about it? So they feel that, okay, the adults are giving me a sense of importance. They're not telling me just what to do, what not to do, or something like that, or ordering me around. So giving that sense of agency also becomes important. And as I was telling you during that gadget-free time and all that, because like environment is important, they are looking at us, that how we are behaving and all. We have to ensure that we also monitor our behavior when we are, around them and all. We cannot expect them to be disciplined if I am not disciplined. We cannot expect them to be gadget-free when I am not gadget-free completely. We cannot expect them to be doing some creative pursuits when we are not doing anything like that. So there are certain small things that we can try and do. If I think that no, nothing is happening even after that, it's always good that if we reach out for some professional help. And I think that maybe that's all that we can try and do, and hope for the best. So yes, I would finish my talk in here, and I would then we can go for the next panelist to give her discussion, start with her discussion.
Yeah, many thanks, Ms. Sumita. So would you be around till the end, because we have got a few questions?
Yes, I will be there.
So we can take all the questions together.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So can we request Dr. Pooja? So let me see. I've promoted her as panelist. 1 second. Yeah, Dr. Pooja, would you be able to take up?
Hello. Good evening, Gagan. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Dr. Pooja. Thanks for joining.
Honored to be with you people, and honored to talk on right now the pandemic has created a lot of things. So as an Ayurvedic doctor and a physician, I would like to help people to come out with two things. Like right now, they are suffering from mental ailments more regarding the COVID. And secondly, regarding their lifestyle, what they should eat, what they should not eat, and how to enhance their immunity. So these are the two things I'll be talking about. And firstly, welcome all. and good evening to everyone. And I know it's a very it's a very but it's a long period. We are suffering with COVID pandemic, and till date, many people are confused and mentally upset. So starting up, I'll just go with it, like what all we could do to hold up. So starting with the mudra, what we can do to help ourselves. One is the Prithvi mudra, and one is the Pran mudra. So the Prithvi mudra would be, just look at my hands. When you close your ring finger, when you meet your ring finger lightly with your thumb and keeping all the fingers straight, this makes it Pran mudra. You hold it like this and keep these on your
Dr.
knees.
Pooja, your video is not on. Sorry, in case you are showing something, we can't see you. I think your camera is not on. Just in case you are showing something.
Let me check.
Yeah, sorry. I thought initially I thought you have not switched it on, but now we can't
No,
see.
my camera is on.
No, but
Okay.
I can't see. Yeah, now I think it's coming up early. Yeah, now I can see. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Dr. Pooja, we can see you now. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I didn't check that.
Yeah, no worries.
So, hello, welcome, and good evening to everyone. So, I was talking about the Pran Mudra and the Prithvi Mudra, which actually helps in two, three things in this pandemic. When one, with so much of stress, we are losing our hair, we are losing our peace of mind, the chest is getting clogged, we are unable to breathe properly. So, in that case, we have to do this Pran Mudra. See my hands. The ring finger touches the thumbs this way, slightly and lightly. They are not pressing each other. This is the mudra, and with all the fingers straight. Now, with this, you keep these hand on your knees like this and close your eyes. With this, you have to do the pranic breathing. That is, take a deep breath, hold it, then release it, then again hold it. Do this for 5 minutes. This helps in expanding your lung capacity. The congestion which we feel in our chest, that's get better. Its name is Pran Mudra, so you know how it will work. So secondly, we come up with the Prithvi Mudra. That is the very simple. First, you did with your ring finger. Now with your little finger. Now these two fingers and the other two fingers straight. They are just touching each other. Same way, you will put it on your knees. This way, you can breathe it again like a Pran Mudra. You have to deep breathe by your nose. Hold it, exhale, and hold it. Do this also for 5 minutes. It really enhances your brain, which it is going into the stressful state, bringing your lung capacity to expand, fight with your immune system to build it again back to its normal state. And with this, you can actually work for the coming up the seasonal changes also. It's not just we are looking for the cold, we are looking for overall well-being. So these two mudras will help you, and the breathing technique will help you along with that. Thirdly comes the breathing technique, which we say is Bhramari Pranayam, which is very much used for enhancing the inner soul and to release the toxic behavior pattern of our brain. So in that, we don't do much. We only inhale deeply. So make your hands like this. Keep it on your thighs. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. And just open your mouth a little bit and do the Om Ucharan. Om. Now this way, you have to do this 4 to 5 times before going to your bed and when you wake up in the morning. Brahmari Pranayam really help you in getting over all those situations or programming which you have done in your brain during this pandemic state, when your nature has become irritable, when you're not able to concentrate on anything, you have a very big fear of life right now, or very big fear of losing your loved ones, or any news from anywhere, your friends also, when you hear somebody is sick, the whole program which is in your brain that starts playing again, ki I would be losing, that fearful state which is actually disturbing the whole working structure, the happiness of yours would be great. So do this Brahmari Pranayam 5 times in the morning and 5 times at the bedtime, and the Pran Mudra and along with your Prithvi Mudra. These two mudras could be done anywhere, even in your office, when you feel your brain is getting clogged up and the concentration is breaking, and the happiness which you were carrying, the smile you were carrying, now is getting disturbed, and you have started feeling that restlessness and anger is coming up. You just stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and do these mudras or even the Brahmari Pranayam. You can reboot yourself, and slowly and slowly you'll find that anything on this earth will not at all will disturb the peace of your mind and your well-being. Your immune system will get enhanced. In fact, many people nowadays are having their C-reactive proteins rising up, their platelets are falling down, sometimes the TLC DLCs are rising up. So in case you don't want to consult a doctor, you don't want to go anywhere, yeah, you can do all these and you can see the result in 20 days. The mudras and the Brahmari Pranayam which you will do, it will lower down your C-reactive protein 10 times, and sorry, 10%, and your TLC will also come down. Even your platelets, which were on the lower side, will start rising to the normal ranges. So this will be the one part of my talk, which deals with your pranayam, mudras, and along with that, how you can deal with it. So coming to the second part, yeah, what we can have and how we can enhance our immunity, especially when we have kids, when we have elderlies along with us. We think our immune system is great, but still, we lost many youngsters in the second phase. So here we go with the second part of my talk, like what you should have to enhance your immunity. So to the day start, you first, everybody in the morning should actually have water, because our body is made of 70% of it. So we need actually more of water to clean our system, to enhance our working, all the organs which are working together. So 2 glasses of lukewarm water, and if you can add 2 tulsi leaves and 2 mint leaves along with that, that will enhance the immune system from the morning only, as tulsi and mint leaves help in recovering from any long stay of the post from anything which you have suffered in the last. To, in fact, if you want to actually rebuild your immunity, that also. So both ways, post and pre, if you want to work on it, both ways, you can have 2 glasses of lukewarm water, added into it 2 mint leaves and 2 tulsi leaves. In case you don't get them, then you can have 1 black pepper powder, like 2 pinches of black pepper powder, and 2 pinches of roasted zira powder into it. In any places where you don't find mint leaves or you don't find any tulsi or basil leaves. So coming to the next, yes, in the morning you should have at least a good amount of fruits, but fruits also the seasonal, which whatever season is going on, you will have all the seasonal fruits of your climate. You will not have fruits which have been already told to you, you should have any of the fruit which is not of the present. Like right now in India, in the North India, we are having this autumn break going on, in which new apple is coming, and new fruits are coming. Like apple is the main fruit which is coming right now. Guavas we have, apples we have, pears we have. So any fruit from the summer range, if we want to take, you cannot take that. So that will actually create a problem. So this is, and the seasonal, as much as portion we can take of green leafy vegetable in a day, that is also important. So you have to cut on the cereals, and you have to enhance your immunity with more of fruits in the breakfast or in the morning, and you can have less of cereals going ahead, and you can have more of vegetables and salads into your diet, more of water, more of soups into your diet, which actually will enhance you. And coming up to the last point of it, how much food you should take. Actually, you should only have 40 to 50% of the whole hunger prank you have. Means only 80% of your stomach should be full with food, not more than that. So winding up, anything, any questions, any queries anybody will have, let's see in the end of my session. So winding up, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pooja, for the very good information we get from your side. And we have received lots of questions. So definitely we will discuss at the end of this webinar. So now I would like to welcome Mr. Sunny, and I would like that he will share his experience with us as well.
Yeah, I think you can see me.
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Dr. Sunny, and I'm working with ICMR in PGH Chandigarh. So the topic on which I'm going to present today is like how we can control or minimize the spread of COVID. So we'll just start with the first one. As you know that mask, they are the new normals. Face mask is very important in today's times because it not only protects you from being infected from rest of the people who are infected, even you can spread, you can stop that spread of infection if you happen to be having some symptoms, etc. Now the question arises that what sort of mask you should choose. So as per the CDC, Center of Disease Control, they recommend that your mask must have 2 or more layers of washable, breathable fabric. It must completely cover the nose and mouth, and it must fit snugly against the sides of the face without gaps, so that all the breathing stuff happens only through that mask, and there is no leakage on either side. Then washing your hands is very important as of now, because this infection and many other infections, they are mostly spread from hand to face and then from hand to mouth transmission. This is the most common way of infectious disease to spread. So to prevent and avoid this thing, we must practice routine hand washing, and we should minimize our exposure to dirty surfaces, minimize our exposure of unwashed hands to our eyes, ears, and nose, just to minimize this risk of spread of infection. So then it comes that how we should properly wash our hands. So what CDC says, the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, they says that you just have to sing that song "Happy Birthday to You" like this. 20 seconds is the minimum time. You must spend 20 seconds under the tap using that soap and water to clean your hands properly, rubbing it at all the sides, and then you can think that you have properly cleaned your hand. In the absence of water and soap, you can use some alcohol-based hand sanitizers or wipes as well. They will also suffice the process. And then hygiene is very important to control the spread of infection. You must, stop. Even the kids, we must teach them to avoid picking their nose, biting their nails, and eating anything unwashed. Next comes in this process is cover your mouth. As I told you earlier, that it is a droplet infection, and the virus spreads when somebody coughs, sneezes in your vicinity, and that droplets become airborne. And when you inhale that stuff, so you get the infection. So one must cover your own, mouth while sneezing, and also enforce other people around your vicinity to follow this practice, so that we can minimize the spread of this infection. And then crowded and poorly ventilated spaces, since it's a droplet infection, so the more the people closely knit in a room, the less ventilation there would be, and the more the risk of spread of infection. So we should, to whatever practical way, we should avoid this in the gathering and crowded places to be a part of that gathering, and to maximum but we can be in the outside and properly ventilated spaces. These should be preferred. Now again, this virus, if somebody is sneezing over here and using their hands here and there on the desktop or all the stuff, doorknobs, etc. So these things need to be cleaned. Otherwise, that surface, if in touch with some other people, somebody can also get infected. So proper cleaning and disinfection of your offices, of the your homes, your doorknobs, or the area that you use, keyboards, desks, phones, etc. That should be practiced thoroughly to minimize the spread of infection. And then the most important, vaccination. One must get vaccinated, because our immune system, it is designed to have a memory of previous infections. So once we get that vaccination, in the body we have antibodies, we get that, we have beta cells and T cells, they remember that pathogen, and when a new exposure happens to us of that real virus, so the body has already developed some sort of immunity, and it will have a minimum impact. So vaccination is very important, and one shouldn't skip the vaccination. Then, as Ma'am Ali said, that good food habits are very important. So because immunity is one important factor that will defend you against this infection. So you must follow a routine, a balanced diet with an emphasis on vitamin A, E, zinc, and protein stuff. So, products like vitamin, sweet potato, spinach, broccoli, and these are rich in vitamin A. You should include these stuff in your food. Then in vitamin E, you can go with some, oils like vegetable oils, nuts and seeds. So this is also important. So at last, WHO has issued a 3-factor, this strategy that you should follow. Three different points should be taken care of while you are in outside. The first one is vicinity. You must stay as far as possible from the infected person or the infected area or the crowds and gatherings. So the further you are, the more safer you will be. Then it comes to be time of exposure. The minimum time you would be in vicinity or in exposure of somebody who has likely having this COVID symptoms or flu-like infection. So time is the second factor. You should minimize this timing. And then again, like I earlier said, crowdedness and proper ventilation. So ventilation, timely exposure, and vicinity. These 3 factors should be taken care to ensure that you guys, we all people remain, minimum at the risk of this infection. That's enough from my side. Thank you. We can proceed further.
Dr. Sari, are you there? I think we went on mute and we couldn't hear you out. And your video is also gone.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a few seconds. Yeah.
So I believe it was the last slide that I was discussing.
Yeah.
It was the 3 factors that had been, outlined by WHO, which can help us in make a safer choice. The first one is location. So the more ventilated area it would be, the safer it would be for us. Then the less ventilated and the crowded area it would be, so the risk of infection would be more. So first one is location. We must justify our movements keeping in view this point. Then comes proximity. The more closely in proximity we would be in that crowd or in that infected area, then the more risk of infection would be there. The farther we will be away from there. So proximity is one important. And the last and the most important is time. So the time during which we are getting exposed to a specific person, place also determines that one will be infected with the virus or will get this infection or not. So location, proximity, and time, these 3 factors must be taken care while following all our routine activities. to minimize the risk of spread of infection. Yeah, that's it from my side. Hello, you guys there?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. So yeah, thanks, Dr. Sadi, for giving your time. So we have got few questions. We will take up, like, I think we have got one speaker left. Then I think we will take up the questions with you. So I think you can also see, Dr. Sadi, you should be able to see the questions on your screen.
I'm going through them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Vas, are you okay to? Yeah. Sorry, I think I'm muted.
Yeah.
Dr. Vas, yeah, we can see you now.
Firstly, I would like to thank and especially you and Sujit uncle for giving me this opportunity. So today I'm here to talk about, is dental treatment safe during COVID time and the recovery dental problems we are facing. So if we talk about the first wave last year, when the COVID happened, initially there were no guidelines by the government for the few initial days. Then when the guidelines came, only emergency dental care, just to provide medical prescription to the patient or just to do extractions of the patient, was permitted. And then over the period, due to a lot of incoming lot of research and everything, we realized and we tried to make the dental operatory safe. How we did that? Dentists, they procured good ventilation systems like air purifiers with HEPA 14 filters. Then a lot of high vacuum suctions, use of good sterilization equipment like autoclaves, especially Class B autoclaves, and more use of disposables, working only on appointment basis, less occupancy of the waiting area. And gradually we realized that dental treatment is safe during these COVID times. So how it is safe? If you ask me as a dentist, your dentist should be able to provide you a good ventilated operatory. The sterilization should be at par, right? Your instrument should be autoclaved. You must ask your dentist if he's using an autoclave for sterilization. What treatment you can take during COVID times? You can have any dental treatment, specifically any of the dental treatments. I would say you can go for extractions, you can go for your oral prophylaxis like scaling and polishing, your root canals. Everything is safe. You won't get a COVID unless and until the dentist is not wearing a mask, the attendant, the assistant is not wearing a mask. The chances are very less, right? So make sure the operatory is safe enough for you guys. So during the first COVID wave, we had a lot of geriatric patients, elder patients, which were admitted to hospital for COVID care. Now, in second wave, we had these adult patients and young patients as well, which were admitted. So what happened during the second wave, there was a lot of pharmacotherapy which went there. Patients were given a lot of antivirals, a lot of use of antibiotics. They were on oxygen therapy. A lot of immunomodulators were given to them. That led to prolonged hospitalization. There was improper oral hygiene care, which was bound to be, as patient is sick, he's lying on the bed and he's unable to, brush his teeth or do even mouth rinses or just a simple water rinse. So he's wearing a mask. So that led to oral manifestations post-COVID recovery. What were these? We saw opportunistic fungal infections which happened. You must have heard about it on the news, about these black fungus cases, yellow fungus cases. which is also known as mucormycosis, right? This hyposalivation led to, hyposalivation means less of saliva in the mouth, which led to, a lot of cavities in the patient. Patient had a lot of inflamed gums, which led to periodontitis. Their teeth became mobile. They start moving. Then due to psychological stress, patient having this post-recovery, there was a lot of clenching of their teeth, which broke their teeth. And due to this persistent waves, or you call spurts of the COVID, patient have this anxiety and fear of visiting a dental clinic, which led to their, improper or incompletion of the dental treatment. For example, if I started a root canal during the first pre-lockdown, first wave of pre-lockdown, and which was incomplete, and patient came to me after, let's say, 3 to 4 months post lockdown, it was all flared up. It was all, the temporary fillings were gone. It was all infected again. That led to, multiple problems again. So if you think about that, dental treatment is safe right now during the COVID time, it is absolutely wrong. You must get your dental checkups done regularly, which are due. I'm pretty sure that everyone goes for a regular checkup. Otherwise, pre-COVID time, you must get your scalings done on time. If any dental treatment is to be done, any cavity has to be filled. As we are expecting our third wave in coming months or coming time, I hope that it doesn't come. But if it's bound to be there, then you must get your dental treatment done so that you're not stuck during this lockdown again if third lockdown happens. So any extraction to be done, get it done. If root canal has to be done, don't take self-medication. Don't just ask the pharmacist or a pharmacist, or a chemist, just give painkillers to relieve your pain. You must get the treatment done. If pain is getting accumulated underneath your tooth, that will lead to abscess. You may have extraoral swelling, which may require further any involvement of antibiotics. It may include your systemic conditions also. So, frankly speaking, just like other medical treatment, even dental treatment is safe. Just trust your dentist, and he'll definitely take care of you. So I'll just wind up right now. Any queries have to be taken, I'll just take up that.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Vas. It was very enlightening. So we came to know a lot of myths and facts. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope the third wave doesn't come, but I think US is already hitting up, and in UK also that I've spoken to quite a few doctors. They're saying they're expecting in November it's around 30,000 per day, but I don't think anyone is bothered now.
No, none.
Yeah, thanks, doctor. So I think we'll take some questions now. We have got quite a few questions lined up. So first of all, there's a good question. I think it's anonymous. That is there any, doctor? Is there any symptoms for oral cancer?
There are no, as such, if the patient is immunocompromised, there would be a chances, right, to have these opportunities, fungal infections. If any other, if you ask specifically from COVID, you can get a cancer, no. You can have a fungal infection, which may worsen and become a opportunist, like a immuno condition like mucormycosis, which is not a cancer. It is just a fungal infection.
Okay. Means so any symptoms of, I think oral cancer is like a bit risky.
Oral cancer, you may have these, white patches in your mouth. There may be ulcerative tissues in your mouth. Patient may be having difficulty to swallow. Patient may be having, they may lose their part of, taste sensation like that. That is common in COVID also. You don't mix it with the COVID, but getting cancer from COVID, chances are very less.
Okay. And one more, I think, general question is there, Dr. Vas, like, what is the, I think, sorry, that's related to my kids as well. Like, what should be the age of my child for first dentist to see a dentist? In UK, I think we get it registered through, means in the schools, the kids have to go. We automatically get a call from dentist for every year. They go for checkup once in 2 years. But I don't know about it in India.
See, ideally the checkup should be done once the first tooth erupts in the oral cavity, right? But 3 years is the ideal age when a dentist, when the child must see a dentist, right? And it has to be done annually. And once he attains the age of 6 months, it should be biannually.
Okay, yeah, maybe UK, it's like for all the kids till school, we get automatic appointments booked, and we have to go for the checkup.
See, we can't compare that with UK. That's a privilege you are having over there, right? And a lot of patient motivation and patients are educated over there. Or if you talk about oral healthcare in India, that's still lagging far behind. We are far behind with other countries. So yes, if in general, if you ask me, get it done at least once the kid is about 3 years of old age, and then you can gradually shift on to biannually.
Okay, no, that's really correct what you mentioned, that, when my kids went to the dentist, I went with them last year. So they were told anything they eat sweet, they have to do, they have to rinse their mouth. So at least they learned one thing, and flossing. So two things they were told very properly by a doctor, and now they are quite good at that. Even they tell me when we eat anything sweet to go for a rinse. So yeah, that's at least they learn something over there, and how to brush the teeth.
Definitely, correct brushing technique, and even if any diet modification has to be done, that can be taught to the kid. Like if he's on to a lot of carbs or sugars that lead to dental caries, we can modify that also with the help of counseling.
Okay. And one question before we move to other questions from the doctors, that one attendee is saying that one mother wants to know when should the first baby teeth typically fall out? Is there any age bracket?
See, first milk tooth or deciduous falls about at the age of 6 years. Your lower front teeth, specifically, if I talk about lower front or upper front, they fall at the age of 6.5. So that varies with every kid. That may be some delayed, 6 months or 1 year also, or they may be prematurely, they may fall about 5.5 years also.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Vas. I think we will have more questions, but we will rotate this to
sure.
Thank you, Dr. Vas. Okay, now next question, Dr. Sunny, is to you. There are two questions now lined up for you. So one is, so first is, like, this very, it's very strange that someone is asking that they got vaccination and after 2 days they got COVID positive. So is there any relation with that, with the vaccination and turning COVID positive, or is it just a coincidence?
No, actually, it also depends on the method they have used for, getting the COVID reports, because rapid tests and all that stuff, this is not that much of reliable that you can say 100% if somebody is testing positive over there. If you recheck the patient on RT-PCR, things are going to be different. So it's not like that it's concerned with the vaccination, that post vaccination one can have that, stuff and get it positive. That stuff might be already over there and just synchronized with the process of vaccination. So that's what I say. Yeah.
Okay. And one question is, like, WHO or ICMR, do they recommend kids to wear mask at school?
Yeah, definitely. Wherever there is a gathering, social distancing is practice, and it's being enforced. ICMR in India.
But Dr. Sunny, in UK, means since beginning till age of I think 13, kids are allowed. They don't wear masks. They are allowed not to wear masks, and I've never seen any kid, even my kids, wearing mask anywhere.
See, this really in the initial time came as a surprise, but there is a strong theory behind it, because these guys are, already exposing, since it's being said that the kids have strong immunity as compared to the elder lads. So if you're getting exposed to this small exposure of this virus or anything like that. So the body will get accustomed to it and make the antibodies. So I believe this is the ideology that the UK government has followed, just to ensure that the kids will, since they have a strong immune system, so they might won't end up that critical as the elder ones.
Yeah, so definitely, me and my wife had COVID. Yeah,
and it's working quite well as well. Yeah.
Yeah, me and my wife had COVID in December, and both our kids, luckily, they were all good. They were.
Yeah.
We don't even know anything. We didn't even test them, so I think they have got strong immunity.
Exactly. They have already developed the innate immunity to the exposure. Yes, that is the reason that this didn't. But in India, we went the other way. So it varies from as per the policies of the countries.
Okay, so there are a few questions for Dr. Mrs. Smita. So Mrs. Smita, like there are a few questions regarding the school. That means it was for me also, and someone else asked that like the kids were, for me, I don't think this is relevant because they were going to school, but a lot of my friends whose kids were at home for so long, so especially in India, like my cousins, so they are, I think, a bit reluctant also now to go to school. The kind of relaxed routine they have got. So is there any way to motivate them, or like, because you mentioned the flip side of being at home, but somewhat they got relaxed as well.
Yes, thank you so much for this question, Gagan. You're right that yes, what we were talking about, the flip side is that people can get relaxed and all. So first and foremost is that before deciding on sending the persons to school, because right now, I think there's still an option that you can still be homeschooling or you can go to school and all. Right now, we have to talk about that option to the person. Number one is that. And number two is that we have to also ensure before everything else that whether the safety measures and everything, the person, the child is aware about that are they inclined towards taking care of all of them. Like Dr. Sunny was talking about the different masks and what the masking, whatever the children have to wear and all. So then comes the thing that, if you are planning to send the child to the school and all, somewhere down the line, you have to do it in a very insidious way. Of course, we have to give that motivation that, you will meet your friends and everything. So, as they say, that give them a kind of a rewarding kind of an idea that, listen, you will be meeting a friend, so it will be fun, so a couple of days, so it will be okay. And we have to gradually set up their routine little bit, that okay, I know that the routine has been disturbed a lot while you were staying at home, so let's try and take care of the routine a little bit, and then we will see. Because if, let's just say that today we force them and all, they might think that okay, I was so relaxed at home and now they're sending me to school, and then there will be so much of discipline and that will be too much for me, I wouldn't take a nap at that point of time. They might refuse. So obviously at that point of time, we can try and explain to them about that how they can do that. But if the school refusal is happening for something else, not for laziness, but something else, that is also something that we need to be aware of, that why are they refusing school? Is it just because of lack of motivation, because they have been feeling relaxed, or is it because of something else? So once we know what is the idea, we can try and push them towards it. Push means gentle pushing, and we can, like, if it's just for relaxation, we can gradually try and structurize their lifestyle, so that we can make it easier for them when they go to the school and all, and see to it that they might feel comfortable about it. And again, like I said, that tell them about the rewarding experience that they might get when they go back to school. But if it's because of something else, that they're afraid of how they will, maybe even if they just have any COVID anxiety, or they're afraid of their academics, or they're afraid of any peer problems and all, we also need to ask about all those things. So once we are aware of what might be the reason, we might try and basically reassure them, answer them, and try and motivate them in that kind of way. If I don't know if you can understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So initially my kids were not very, they're 5 and 7, I think the age a bit younger, but they were not very keen to go on laptop, and because my younger one didn't have to do online classes only half an hour, but my elder one had to be of laptop at least 2 to 3 hours a day, apart from I think you can say 4 to 6 hours a day. So she was not very happy with that. She's more like a person who want to play around. So and in UK, I think the schools are open, but India, like, they are home from so long now. So that's why the reluctance have come into picture, I would say. Yeah, thanks.
And a lot of other issues also, but again, that depends on children to children, that what problems they might be having.
Also, if they have to wear mask in school, I think they might get reluctant, because in UK you don't have to. but at least till...
Yes, but in here too, there like again, like Dr. Sunny was talking about CDC. So again, CDC too recommends that anybody below 2 should be wearing a mask. So WHO has been saying about this thing that anybody above 2 should be wearing a mask. So and WHO had been saying that okay, people who are, I mean, that has been their thought process at least a year back, that children who have better immunity and all, they can wear clothes or cloth mask and all. But if you think that, you talk with their pediatrician, if you think that their immunity is compromised or they have some problems on, it's better that they wear any medical mask or any surgical mask or medical mask, and something like that. But of course, mask and social distancing should be something that can be that needs to be mentioned in here when we are talking about going to school and everything like that.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Smita. And last one, like I got loads of questions for Dr. Pooja. So, Dr. Pooja, are you there? I will ask you to unmute. Dr. Pooja, I'm not able to hear you. I think you were trying to come online. I think she is experiencing some, but I think she has answered questions online, but I can't see her getting unmute. Jasmine, can you check with her offline? I'm trying to ask her to unmute, ask her to start video, but I think she's unable to. Yeah. I thought she spoke. No. I can't see even her on mic. Yeah, but anyway, for others like who are there, so there are few questions which I think have been asked, and she has answered also. That one question was asked whether like the yoga asthmatic patients in COVID times, my husband faced difficulty. So you can do pran mudra more 3 to 4 times a day, along with blow 1 balloon every day. Then which herbs can I use a diet COVID precautions? You can add turmeric, black pepper, and mint, tulsi, ajwain, and roasted zira powder to do so. And one question is like that was I think my question, and when I couldn't also I asked Meenakshi that like I do 5 pranayams every day. I try to do, but it takes 45 minutes. So is there any pranayam, if you have less time, which one I should go with, and how much times? So it is 3 to 5 times a day, required 2 times a day. You can continue them as it is, and yes, 3 to 5 times a day is required. Oh, I said 3 to 5 times once a week. Sorry, in one go, I was saying. And one question was that can you is there any yoga exercise at home remedy which helps recovering skin kind of allergies? So it's a generic question. So you said, I think for same she was saying Mayur Mudra and Aska and drinking water in copper vessel. So thank you everyone. I think we had a very good session, and it's been over 1 hour now, exactly 4 minutes over 1 hour. And I thank once again to all our panelists and Dr. Pooja, Dr. Vats, Dr. Ankur Vats, Dr. Sunny, and Mrs. Smita to taking your time out on Saturday and making this event successful. We will share it over YouTube. Thanks a lot, everyone. Any questions before we can close it off? Okay, I assume there are no questions more, and no more questions. So I conclude here, and we will send you the video link very soon. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.